Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the Patriots Talk podcast. It's Thursday. We've done a lot of these this week, but now comes time to turn our attention to the matchup. The 5-4 Eagles hosting the 8-1 Patriots, both teams coming off a bye. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty and the X's and O's with Phil Perry. We're going to have Reuben Frank, NBC Sports Philly, joining us. And also, tail end of the podcast, my conversation in the locker room on Wednesday with Benjamin Watson about the Colin Kaepernick workout that is scheduled for Saturday. Enjoy.
Adam Vinatieri,
It's time, world champion, and there ain't nothing you can do about it.
You know, I just said enjoy, and then I didn't do anything else. I'm just still sitting here where I was. So it's not like I'm throwing to something that's on tape. I'm still here. So, Phil, that was weird, huh? The enjoy. Why didn't I just introduce you at that point and say, Phil's here?
Well, because I think your awareness, your podcast awareness is through the roof now. I'd give you probably an 88 in terms of Madden rankings. And so you understand when the podcast gets put together, our guy Ryan Provencher likes to have a little intro, and then he'd probably drop in a little music where you paused, and that leads us into the next section, allows the listeners a little bit of an easier listen.
Is that right, Ryan?
He's right. He nailed it.
Oh.
You both nailed it.
Boom.
Good start.
All right. Well, let's continue that good start by having an insightful conversation about the Patriots-Eagles matchup. I mean, anyone can sit their ass down and start babbling about Carson Wentz and the danger posed by the RPOs and the burgeoning running game and the Patriots' issues against Baltimore in stopping that running game. And anyone can make bold predictions about N'Keal Harry that they really don't know until an hour and a half before the game commences as to whether he's not going to be there or not. Instead, let's get into some of the matchup shit. And, Phil, you're great at it. And you started pointing out some of the advantages that Philadelphia has. We're going to start with Philly advantages on this pod.
Okay.
Philly advantages offensively or defensively. Advantage number one, Phil.
I would say advantage number one. Let's start with the Philly offense versus Patriots defense matchup. Advantage number one for Philly is that they love them some two tight end offensive formations. Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, far and away the best tight end pair the Patriots have faced. I would say even individually,
100%.
Probably the two most talented tight ends they have faced in 2019. And so
how have they done against the guys who are middling so far?
Not great. It hasn't been an outright disaster, but it has not been good. They are 17th in the NFL. They allow almost 8 yards per attempt to tight ends in 2019. They are against 12 personnel less effective than any defense has been in the NFL over the course of the last month. They're allowing almost a 90% success rate, 86% success. And when I say success, just FYI, and if you read this anywhere else in the NFL landscape, no. The success rate reference, and Sean McDermott was actually asked about the Bills coach, asked about success rate earlier this week, and it looked like he wanted to give a thoughtful answer, but the person using the success rate term wasn't really sure why they were using it or what it meant, and McDermott ended up just kind of stomping all over the guy. Success rate means you got 40% of the yards needed for a first down on first down. So 1st and 10, 4-yard carry, that's a successful carry. On second down, success, quote-unquote success, is defined by getting 50% of what you need for a first down. And on third or fourth down, success is defined by getting 100% of what you need for a first down. Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay.
And it's interesting because ever since I was a little kid, and I used to look at football cards because I collected them as a little guy, I'd look at John Brockington, Green Bay running back in the late 70s, and say,
sure,
he averages like 4.4 yards per carry. So if you hand it to him 3 times in a row, he's going to get you a first down. That's what you're looking for. But there were times when I saw a guy with like 3.5 yards per carry and say, well, if you hand it to him 4 times and you get 4 downs, it's still a first down.
Right.
So he's good too. I've come to understand that there's fewer times the teams go on fourth down. Sorry for the divergent.
No,
there was no
great.
reason for me to
that's
take
great.
that side.
But anyway,
trip.
just to take it back, so the Patriots are allowing 90% over the last 3 games, almost 90% success to teams that have 2 tight ends on the field at one time.
Success on first, second, third.
Yes, that's overall success.
Okay, so they're getting
so
their
they are having good plays 90% of the time when they have 2 tight ends on the field.
So, okay, when you put 2 tight ends on the field, they're getting 4 on first down. They're getting half of what's necessary.
Yep. On second down.
3, and then they're going from their 3rd and 2
They're converting, or they're scoring touchdowns.
Okay, so that's a concern. What are the numbers right now for Goddard and Ertz combined?
Okay, so they use 12 personnel more than anyone else in the league, 40% of the time. Okay, and this is what they're doing with 12 personnel. That's 1 back, 2 tight ends. So Ertz and Goddard on the field together. 7.2 yards per attempt, 106 quarterback rating, 8 touchdowns to 1 pick. That's in the passing game. And then in the running game, they're averaging 4.2 yards per carry.
Okay, the team is 5-4.
The team is 5-4, and those numbers aren't amazing. They're not. You'll see some teams that when they have 12 personnel on the field, the Browns, for instance, I remember looking this up ahead of the Cleveland game. I thought for sure they were going to use 12 personnel 50% of the time against the Patriots because they'd been really good at it for about 3 weeks. They're averaging 12 yards per pass attempt and 5 yards per carry. And then Freddie Kitchens came out and he ran it like 12 times. And they lost.
It was working.
And it did. One of the plays they used it on was on the touchdown on a corner route from Baker Mayfield to a tight end nobody's ever heard of with Dante Hightower in coverage. So those are the things that have been hurting the Patriots, and the Eagles do that thing more than anybody else in football.
It's more complicated than for me to just say, well, Chung's been pretty dinged up, Phil.
That's part of it.
And he's their tight end squisher, but it is more nuanced than just Pat Chung's been dinged.
I think that is part of it, but it's a little bit more nuanced, and especially with this team and these 2 tight ends, because Ertz is such a good receiver. He set the record last year for receptions by a tight end in a season. I think it was 116. He's so effective as a receiver that they'll have situations where they have 2 tight ends on the field, but then they'll split 4 guys out wide, and Goddard will be the only guy tight to the formation, and now all of a sudden it's like having 4 receivers on the field.
So you have to treat Ertz as a wideout, as you've so often heard Bill
You do at times,
describe.
but they'll also use him attached to the formation. Not as much, but I think it's closer this year than it has been in, say, the last 3 with Ertz in terms of how he's used. So it's almost a 60-40 split whether he is running a route or he is blocking in the run game. Almost 60-40, but it's been even more drastic in years past. So they are using him in a little bit more versatile way this year.
Let's put a bow on this first advantage that the Philadelphia Eagles, perceived advantage, or at least favorable matchup, has. How do the Patriots address it? Is it Stephon Gilmore on Zach Ertz? A lot of conversation has emanated from Philadelphia about that.
Yeah, offensive coordinator Mike Groh in Philly said that that's something they've talked about. It's something that they're potentially anticipating seeing quite a bit. I have a hard time envisioning that just because in my research thus far, and I'll be writing about this for the website, it'll be out on the website by the time you listen to this podcast, having Stephon Gilmore shadow a tight end is borderline unprecedented. He has been, according to Pro Football Focus, targeted with a tight end in his area only 8 times since he's joined the Patriots.
I do remember the Patriots sicking Darrelle Revis on Charles Clay back in 2014.
They did.
When they played the Dolphins.
And so part of the reason they did that was why? The Bills didn't, or the Dolphins at the time, didn't have really anybody else to throw to, right? I mean, they didn't have.
But these guys might be in the same boat because Jeffrey and.
So that's the thing. And I think that's why it's a conversation down in Philly. The receiving group, and we're going to hear from Reuben Frank later in the podcast about how bad these receivers are, even though you know some of the names, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar. These guys have been so bad this year that you might be wasting your most valuable coverage asset in Stephon Gilmore if you were to say, go shadow Alshon Jeffrey all game. He's been that bad. And so it might make sense to have him on Zach Ertz. He was on Zach Ertz for 1 snap in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. He was on Travis Kelce for 1 snap in the AFC Championship game last year. And if he is their biggest perceived quote-unquote weapon, which he is in the passing game, why would you not have your best coverage guy on him? And so I think what we'll see, Tom, just to put a bow on this advantage, in passing situations, I would put Stephon Gilmore on Zach Ertz every single time. Now, passing situations are kind of spread out across the board now. It's not just 3rd and long anymore. But if he is split out away from the formation, I would have Stephon Gilmore on him.
Okay.
If it's
that's
third and long, I would have him on him. The other thing they could do,
if he's attached or closer in or in the slot, then you could turn that into we're going to double and put Gilmore on the outside guy and do the two-man routine with Jason McCourty and Devin McCourty over the top, or Harmon,
you might be able
Chung,
to. The only question with that
Excuse me.
is it too complicated to figure that out in a pretty short amount of time, especially when the Eagles
can formation in and out of shit.
They can formation in and out. They also like to go hurry up. So that's a lot to try to process. It's easier just to say on third down you have Ertz, or all game you have Ertz. So we'll see.
Next perceived advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles offense against the Patriots defense.
Their running game.
And that is, to me, do we believe the Patriots struggle against the run? Or do we, and I believe this, that it is a weak point but still a strong point? It would be it's relative weak point on the Patriots defense, but it is by no means something that you would be ashamed of and say go back downstairs until the neighbors leave. I think they can play well against the run.
I'm with you because even though we look at this and say, well, you want to attack this Patriots defense, the way to do it is on the ground. Yes, but they've still been a top 10 run defense for most of the season until they saw the Ravens, and the numbers are still really favorable in terms of how efficient they've been against the run. One of the issues, and I highlighted this during the bye, is that when teams have gone with lighter people, so more receivers on the field, 11 personnel, 10 personnel, 3 receivers, 4 receivers, the Patriots have given up some really big plays when they've had a lot of defensive backs on the field. And part of that is because of bad tackling, believe it or not. Patriots are thought of as a very good tackling team, and they still are in a lot of respects. It just so happens that a 65-yard run against the Redskins or a 44-yard run against the Browns, you have multiple missed tackles by defensive backs on this Patriots defense. So I'm interested to see if the Eagles, who really aren't a 4-receiver team, but they're mostly either 11 or 12 personnel, if they try to, in their 11 personnel, try to run it and run it often against these Patriots defensive backs and just try to get to the second level and create some big plays there. What's interesting about these Eagles, they have basically 2 very core run game concepts. And one is very simple. It's something the Patriots see just about every week. It's inside zone. The other is something that looks a lot like inside zone, which means you have all of your offensive linemen basically stepping in one direction simultaneously to block an area, not a man. And you often have the guard sort of climbing up, double teaming, climbing up to the second level to seal off linebackers. The second concept is basically what looks like inside zone, but they'll pull a guard. And it's just a pretty standard power, quote-unquote, power running play.
Okay. So you're pulling a guard to join that cadre of
So it actually goes in the opposite direction.
So it's almost it's a counter in a way.
It's not really a counter in that you have the running back, taking a step in one direction necessarily and then coming back the other way. But that's sort of the idea. The reason they're so successful at it, even though there's not a ton of window dressing to what they do with their running game, is their offensive line is really good. And they just paid Brandon Brooks, who's their starting right guard, in a fashion that has now made him the richest right guard in the NFL, Tom. Massive man, 6'5", 330 pounds. Plays next to Lane Johnson, who we all know very well from what he said leading up to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, but he's still a very good right tackle. And so you just get yourself behind those 2 guys, and you're good. And that's what the Eagles have done. Their left side isn't really that impressive. They've got a first-round rookie at left tackle who is replacing Jason Peters, who's been injured. He's been good, not great. And Jason Kelsey still at the center is still very good and very mobile and allows them to be good in there. But big game for guys like Lawrence Guy, Adam Butler, Landon Roberts if he's out there, Dante Hightower, whoever is in the middle of that defense, of that front 7, those guys are going to have to be really good because you'll know what's coming, and you'll still have a hard time stopping it because of guys like Brooks and Johnson.
Patriots' defensive advantages over the Philadelphia Eagles, however, I think there's a bounty.
Yeah.
Or they're bountiful. There's a cornucopia of those.
There you go. A lot of good Thanksgiving references in there. Their secondary is going to have an advantage over just about every receiving group in the league. This year, that advantage is, or this week, that advantage is more pronounced than maybe it has been all season. So whether you put Gilmore on Ertz, whether you put J.C. Jackson on Ertz, which is, I think, possible. If you'll remember back to the AC Championship game, J.C. Jackson covered Travis Kelce in man-to-man coverage most of that game and did an okay job. They're still going to have so many good players on the back end to match up with a bad receiving group that's always going to be an advantage. And I think the offensive line, if they get into bad down and distance situations, that left side of the offensive line, again, with the rookie left tackle, Andre Dillard, you run some of these games and stunts that we've seen all year that have given younger quarterbacks a hard time, could work again. Carson Wentz isn't a young quarter. He's still young.
He is still young. In terms of mileage on the tires, he missed a year. He had the ACL. He was less effective last year. And I would say that Nick Foles against the Patriots, and the Patriots didn't believe this going into that game. I know that for a fact, including Bill Belichick. Nick Foles was a more dangerous matchup than Carson Wentz would have been, for the simple reason that Nick Foles, and we talked about it with Chris Long, was reared in the up-tempo, Chip Kelly, get the mother scratcher out, and on to the next play. Way of doing things. Mm-hmm. And Wentz is not what Foles can be in that regard. Not that he's better, Foles, in terms of making throws, but I don't think that Wentz is going to know what he's really hitting them.
I think it's going to be hard for Wentz if they have a plan for Ertz, and they will, and if the receiving group is as bad as it is, it's going to be hard for him to drop back 8 or 9 times consecutively on a drive, stay in the pocket, make accurate throws to a less than receiving group, and get all the way down the field and score. It's going to be hard. So they're going to have to make hay with their running game. They're going to have to find Ertz in critical spots despite whatever plan it is the Patriots have for him. I watched a lot of the Lions against the Eagles back in week 3 because of Matt Patricia, obviously. They doubled Ertz all over the field in all different kinds of situations, and Ertz still ended up having a pretty good game. And the reason was the Lions would double the wrong guy. Like a linebacker would double the slot receiver who was lined up right next to Ertz. And then he would look up after the fact and say, oh, that was the tight end that I was supposed to be my bad, guys, my bad. And meanwhile, the Eagles have a fresh set of downs and they go down and score. So I do think that the pressure stuff could work because, A, Wentz is, as you mentioned, still relatively young. But, B, you don't necessarily even have to confuse him. If you can just confuse the left tackle, you still might have a successful play.
And I think that the Patriots are going to be able to get upfield and do a lot of damage with their pass rush because, why? Because they do it to everybody. They've gotten after teams. They're an aggressive, attacking defense, and that's what Doug Peterson told us he is anticipating from the Patriots defense.
I would expect that too.
Flip it.
Okay.
Patriots offense against the Philadelphia Eagles defense. To me, the advantage the Patriots have is simply in they're an unopened book. They just started in week 9 finding out who they were. What are they going to be in this game? How much can they unleash on this Philadelphia and Jim Schwartz defense? What's Sanu bring? What does N'Keal Harry bring? Are they up-tempo on the road? Are they afraid of, and that's what's interesting to me, I don't think that they will be afraid of the Philadelphia Eagles offense. So I think that they will go up-tempo, Phil, and push it. Best way to stop an all-pro player like Fletcher Cox is to wear his ass out. So agree or disagree on that because you've spent more time in the trenches on the Eagles personnel.
No, I do agree with you there, and I think if they go hurry up, they do have the ability to maybe get the Eagles in some bad personnel groupings. There have been some players that it's very clear the Eagles don't want in coverage situations. Nathan Gary looks like Nathan Jerry if you're looking at the Eagles roster. Middle linebacker for the Eagles, not a coverage guy. And it's become very clear over the course of the season that that's not something he does well. But if you can get him on the field, maybe you have 2 backs on the field. Maybe you start the game with Rex Burkhead and James White as part of your 5-wide package. And if the Eagles see that, they have to react and they say, okay, let's get Nate out there And if you can get them in some coverage situations and then you hurry up and you don't substitute, you don't give them the opportunity to substitute, that's somebody that you might try to attack. I think the other thing you mentioned is you do want to try to wear them out. Fletcher Cox is phenomenal inside. He might be second only to Aaron Donald in terms of interior defenders in the NFL. But Derek Barnett is a talented player, Tennessee guy. Brandon Graham is having a good year. And they will use, it's not necessarily a NASCAR package, but something they've done a little bit more of lately is use 3 defensive ends on the field at one time. And that's something I could certainly see giving the Patriots an issue. But if the ball's out nice and quick and you can uncover quickly, which they should be able to do against a corner group that Ruben, again, hits on, and he mentions, when they're healthy, they've actually been okay. They don't have the kind of talent that should overwhelm the Patriots. So while the rush is good, it's sort of a fascinating look at these two defenses together this game is, because there has been a discussion in sort of just the football community at large, but I think specifically the analytics community that likes to talk about football. What's more important, coverage or rush? This is a great example of how teams are built,
right?
And one team being built and paying their secondary and being great that way, and the other team having some really big names and talented pieces up front, not so much on the back end, and having a 5-4 season.
And isn't it fascinating how that has morphed within the Patriots organization? Because they used to be a front seven dominated with Vince Wilfork, Mayo, Seymour, high-ticket guys were in their front seven, lower ticket. And I mean, somebody's out there saying, well, what about
Rodney Harrison and Ty Law? They're pretty good players in the secondary, too. So.
Yeah, okay, you got me. But the Patriots spend more at the back end than they do on the front end right now. They're better out back than they are up front. They're good everywhere. You want to bring Rube in right now?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Reuben Frank has been with NBC Sports Philly for a long time. He's covered the Eagles. Probably about as long as I've covered these guys. He looks a little bit more weather-beaten than me, but that's because he has more fun. So let's dial him up right now. In comes Reuben Frank from NBC Sports Philadelphia. Hey, Rube, were you along at the same time in 2009 for the maiden voyage of Comcast Sportsnet Philly and when they started just building it out? You were, right?
I started in 2010, actually.
Oh, I predate your ass.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure they knew what they were doing before I, made that jump.
You hired Curran? Well, I'll come anyway. Well, it's been great. It's been a fun 10 years. We get to do a lot of stuff. We're lucky, I think, in this business, considering the landscape these days, to be in a great spot. And we're also lucky to be in extremely passionate cities. Phil, agree or disagree? Phil Perry.
Yeah, agree.
Okay. Let's get into this matchup. First, give me the tenor of the city in Philadelphia as the Eagles, who I think, from an outside perspective, have underachieved since their Super Bowl win, but really have a chance to legitimize overstates it, to change some of the conversation about what's gone on in Philly since they won the Super Bowl this Sunday against the Patriots.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think New England's such an anomaly with their ability, the Patriots, that organization, to come back strong after going to the Super Bowl. Nobody else really is able to do that other than the Broncos a couple of years. So, and then going back to the Cowboys back in the Aikman days. But 9-7 and winning a playoff game on the road, and then 5-4 isn't the worst place to be. I think the Super Bowl 2 years ago really changed expectations among Philly fans, not just on the Eagles, but everybody. Sixers had a bad loss in Orlando last night, and they're 7-4, and I was getting tweets that people wanted to fire the coach. It's just everybody's kind of expects perfection now coming off 2017 when they got a glimpse of what that's like. So I think 5-4 is not where anybody expected this team to be. And like you said, they're coming off a couple wins, and they really have a chance to. You look at the schedule, and they finished with a Patriots-esque run of the Giants twice, the Redskins, the Dolphins, see if they can maybe squeeze in the Browns in there possibly. But after these 2 games with the Patriots and the Seahawks, it's pretty much smooth sailing, you would think. So if they can steal one of these 2, and I think the feeling is that the Patriots game of the 2 is probably more winnable, they'll be in great shape. So I think it's a real statement game. I think we'll kind of really get a sense of where the Eagles are. They've, for the most part, other than the Falcons, they've won the games they're supposed to win, and they won one that they weren't supposed to win out in Green Bay. So it's going to be a fascinating game. I'm looking forward to this one.
Do you think they're better than the Patriots? Sorry, Rube. Just had to squeeze in that.
No, I don't think they're better than the Patriots because I don't. It's a tough question. I think at home certainly there's an advantage. I still think the Patriots are a better team. I think the Eagles are flawed.
Where?
Their passing game is just so limited. Their wide receivers are so bad and so unproductive. It puts them in the position where they don't have a lot of different ways to have success on offense, and they've become this running team. And I know the Patriots have been, not great against the run the last 6 weeks or so, but you got to make some plays in the passing game. And Zach Ertz does his thing, but they don't have any wide receivers, and that's a tough way to win. And people talk about Belichick always has that ability to take away your best weapon. The Eagles don't have any weapons, so he might be confused trying to figure out what to do. I think the Patriots are a more sound team. They certainly aren't a perfect team, but they've won Super Bowls with teams that aren't perfect teams, and that's the beauty of this league. You're able to kind of adjust on the fly and win games. When you have elements and dimensions of your team that aren't great, and that's the challenge facing the Eagles. And obviously their secondary has been susceptible to big plays. They got some guys back. It's kind of a different group than it was a month ago. So, we'll see how that goes. But I would say the Patriots, I think they're favored and they should be favored. But I think it'll be a close, competitive, fun game.
Phil, what do you got?
Yeah, Ruben, can you just paint a picture for us as to how bad the receivers have been? Because I think people here look at the roster and they say, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar. These guys killed the Patriots. These guys killed the Patriots.
Yeah, and Ertz has been fine. He's not putting up the numbers of last year, but getting double teamed a lot more. I think Alshon has just gotten old. I can put it into their wide receivers are averaging over the last 7 games 72 yards a game combined as a group. It's like that's barely 1,000-yard season as a team. And since Stephon went down, there's just been no, they're like right around 10.2 yards a catch as a group, which is terrible. They haven't caught a touchdown pass longer than 6 yards, the wide receivers in their last 6 games. So it's been grim. Alshon looks he's only 29, but he kind of looks like he's about 38. He just looks slow, and he's had a bunch of injuries really for years now. Aguilar's regression has been shocking.
Yeah. He carried them in that Super Bowl. There were plays, and that's what strikes me about that Super Bowl, Ruben, when we look back, and we have done a lot of that this week. Every time the Eagles needed to make a play, they made it. Nelson Aguilar catch, Corey Clement catch at the back of the end zone. The Philly special, which I think is overrated, but actually illustrative of we're going to do everything we can to win the game. So to me, Philly was at 100% on that day, and I'm talking about legitimate 100%. Everything that they needed to do, they did.
Yeah, and that's elusive. And, I think they're learning that you can't – you talk about Aguilar and Alshon, they were the starting receivers in the Super Bowl, and they're not the same. You can't just keep bringing back the same group and expecting them to be the same people. And I think that's the key to any championship team is, all right, how can we improve? You can't just keep doing the same thing, bringing back the same roster. And Aguilar, his kind of regression has been mysterious because he had two. You look at that last drive in the Super Bowl, he had 3 consecutive first down catches. Has anybody ever done that in the fourth quarter of a game-winning drive in the Super Bowl? I doubt it. You can look that up on Pro Football Reference when you get a free second.
Brown and Edelman probably both. I hate to
probably.
say it, but it was insane some of the stuff that they did. But your point is well taken. And that Super Bowl win, I think, Ruben, it's interesting how whether it be a fan base or a media contingent, does take ownership of what it's seen. And after Philadelphia's win, the amount of finger wagging that went on from the players, certainly about, hey, we know how to have fun down here. I think that there was exception taken. It's a weird thing. It's tribal. But within the fan base, on the team, and within the media contingent, like, yeah, okay, you guys are having fun, but it's a little harder than you think. The quote-unquote struggles that we've seen Philadelphia have felt as if they are validation of, you guys don't really know how friggin' hard it is. And is that, do they have a better appreciation for the fact that, yeah, it ain't all fun and games, and to stay there, you do have to be a prick?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think they look at it more like they've been so decimated by injuries. I mean, they've had 13 different starting cornerbacks since opening day of last year. And they're down 3 defensive tackles this year. I think they look at themselves as a championship caliber
victims
team.
Victims of circumstance?
What's that?
They're victims of circumstance.
Yeah, I think that's how they look at it. I don't think they look at themselves as, oh, we didn't realize how hard it is to get back. I think they look at it, all right, well, we lost a couple, close games. I mean, they were one Alshon catch, easy catch from getting back to the NFC Championship game and playing the Rams last year, who they certainly have their number. Alshon drops the ball at the 22-yard line. They would have had a 1st and 10, at the 22 with a chance to, and all the momentum in the world. So they kind of look at that more than, we had all these missteps and didn't understand what it takes. I don't think they look at it that way. And there's enough guys who are on that team who are still here. They look at themselves as a championship type team.
I think they are too. I think that they are.
That's bad. I'm not sure they are.
I think that they're, and again, you're watching it from there. I'm watching it from here with the Patriots. I think, and Phil, please hop in. I think Philadelphia, matchup-wise, on Sunday is probably going to be a better team on the field. The Patriots are going to have to execute better. I know it's asinine to say, but all things being equal, the Eagles are a better team and collection of players that are going to take the field on Sunday. Offense, defense, special teams. I'm high.
You might be a little bit high. I would just say when you look at the matchups and what the Eagles do well versus what the Patriots do well or don't do well, I think a lot of those matchups actually look halfway decent on the Eagles side because, okay, offensively for the Eagles, what do they do well? They run the football well. What's the one thing the Patriots defense hasn't done great this year? Stop the run. What's, maybe number 2 to that would be stopping 2 tight end offenses, and nobody runs the 2 tight end set more than the Eagles. On the other side, we've been looking at Patriots pass catchers all year, for 2 years now really, and said, where are they going to get any production here? And the one side, Ruben, you can correct me if I'm wrong here because it's only been a few days of looking at this Eagles team, but defensively it looks like their front is still pretty good. Fletcher Cox is still really, really good. It's the secondary that's, when they've had issues, kind of been the issue. Is that right?
Well, the secondary, when Darby and Mills have been healthy and started together, they're 14-5, including the playoff run. And those guys are back and they're healthy. And Fletcher's finally healthy. He had foot surgery, and really the first month of the season, 6 weeks, he wasn't himself. But yeah, he's back to being himself. But I think you're totally right. I think that matchup between the Eagles pass rush and Brady is critical because I think that's the whole game. I think that's the key thing because, if he has time, and Phil was talking about this on our Eagle Eye podcast a little while ago, he's still as good as he ever was when he's protected and he doesn't have to move. But if they can get steady pressure on him, and that's gotten better as Fletcher's been back and Jernigan's been back. Derek Barnett, the third year end, is kind of showing some flashes now. Brandon Graham, I think, has six sacks in his last 5 games. So that aspect's gotten better. They only had 3 sacks in their first 4 games.
Whoa.
So, and since then they've been really good getting to the quarterback. So to me, that's, you talk about matchups. If they can get to Brady, I think they have a real good chance to win.
41-33 was the final score in that Super Bowl. And the Patriots, it took them 8 games before they allowed more than 40 points this year. This game's going to be played in the teens.
Yeah.
Show me the lie.
Yeah, I think it'll. Each team's going to score about half as many points as somewhere around that as that. That game was an anomaly. That was a really hard game to cover. I still wake up in the middle of the night and having nightmares about getting my 10 observations in off the Super Bowl. Like if Brady had completed that Hail Mary, I mean, they still would have needed a 2-point conversion, but to tie it. But I still have nightmares about I mean, it's hard enough covering a Super Bowl, but when there's like 17 lead changes and in the last 8 minutes,
doesn't it suck? Don't work. I mean, I have dreams that I'm supposed to be on the set and I'm not even in the town, and I'm eating a sub and I realize that my phone's ringing and I was supposed to be there.
Isn't it a grinder up there? You having a grinder?
No, we have subs. I think a different part of Massachusetts might have grinders.
Yeah, I think there are certain places that go grinder.
Okay.
Some assholes have heroes, too. I mean, are you heroes down there?
Judge. I mean, that
was over the top, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a little
No, that's like a Midwestern. When I was in Ohio in college, they called them heroes.
You guys are sub people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Jersey subs. Jersey's close enough to Philadelphia, so Jersey Mike subs.
Yeah, we use a lot of sub packages at our deli.
Oh, yeah, you still got it.
I apologize for that.
No, you still got it. You still got it. We're going to see you on Sunday, Rube.
Yes.
And we're going to have a hell of a time down there in Philly. And
we are.
We're going to see a good game. A fascinating NFL game.
It really will be. And, I can't wait. Really looking forward to this one. Looking forward to seeing you guys, and safe travels.
Hey, thanks for the time,
Same,
buddy.
Ruben.
Take
Thanks,
care
man.
of yourself. All right, good stuff from Ruben. Phil, give me a prediction before I get to these Ben Watson comments on Kaepernick.
I think this game's going to be closer than I originally anticipated. You said this would be the hardest game of the next 4. I said it would be the easiest. Am I going back on that a little bit? I might be, because I'm going to say it's going to be a 4-point win. It's going to be a 24-20 football game for the New England Patriots. That is a cover, but it's closer than I think anybody in New England wants.
17-16 Philadelphia.
Ooh.
17-16 Philadelphia. Hate to do it.
8-2.
For all you Doors fans out there, and I know you're out there, and I know some people for some reason just decide that the Doors are not a rock and roll band because, you know what? I'm going to say this right now. Hey, Philadelphia, do you feel all right? Because that's one of the first albums that I got. I think it's The Doors' Alive, or Alive She Cried. I don't know. Anyway, I fucking love those guys. Moving ahead now, of course, you all know by now that Colin Kaepernick has a scheduled workout on Saturday. NFL has brought this to fruition. And there's so much that fascinates me about it, in that, first of all, he's been out there for nearly 800 days. Any team that wanted to work him out individually could have done so, including this year. But now there is a move afoot to get one workout for him here in the middle of November on a Saturday, when any pro coach worth his salt or scout is at a college game, and teams that aren't on byes, their GMs and coaches are getting ready for the next opponent. So it's not the most opportune time to call a workout, send up the Kaepernick bat signal for every team, nor, as Charles Robinson from Yahoo reported, is it necessarily fair to say that he has to answer within 2 hours as to whether or not he will be there on Saturday in Atlanta for the workout. Nor, as I wrote in a column about this on NBC Sports Boston, does it seem uninteresting to me that first it was said that the list of teams participating would be shared, and then further reporting said that the list of teams participating would not be shared by the NFL. Why indeed would we need a list? Is the list to just share that these are teams that are interested in quarterbacks in general? Or is it an exercise in either shaming the teams that don't attend or virtue signaling for those that do? What are we doing here with the entire operation? And nobody, in my estimation, has been easier to help me understand the viewpoint as we've processed and moved through this Colin Kaepernick very divisive period in the NFL and in society than Benjamin Watson. I invite you to please, if you could, if you have a chance, read the column that I wrote off of the Watson conversation and just enjoy this conversation I have. Enjoy, don't enjoy, have an opinion. I don't care. I mean, I do care. Otherwise, I wouldn't put it out there. But here's me talking to Ben Watson about Colin Kaepernick's Saturday tryout.
Yeah, I think that's unprecedented. I don't know. I haven't heard that happening before. I hope. Look, I support Colin. I hope that this leads to him getting a job. I don't know why this would lead to it and nothing else in the last 3 years would, honestly. Teams have had several opportunities to bring him in at any point. I don't know why it's come to this. But if this is the way that, he's going to get a job, if he deserves to be in the league and he can play and he gets an opportunity, then I would say great. When I started hearing the details of it, it seems kind of odd.
One could be skeptical about their motivations.
Yes, but I'll also wait and hear more and more because I'm sure more details will come out. So I'm waiting, and hopefully we'll all get a little more clarity about the why and the timing and the Saturday and all the other questions that everybody else has about it. But at the root of it, if somebody sees Colin through this workout that wouldn't have seen him before for whatever reason, and he can play, I hope he gets a chance if that's what he wants.
You are a terrific spokesman and a terrific, I think you model great behavior as to not being cynical about things.
Yeah.
But in my capacity, we oftentimes raise quick judgments and say, well, what's really the motivation here?
Yeah.
And for me, it feels like a CYA move by the league to say, we even had a tryout for the guy.
I agree, but my question is, why now? They could have CYA'd a long time ago, So that's what's kind of odd to me. Like I said, just the timing. Like, why is this 2 years late, 3 years later almost? This is 3 years
17,
later.
18, 19.
Yeah, why now? I'm not privy to those conversations. I'm pretty sure it's been made public probably about a month ago or so when his representative put out, just a bunch of statements. You saw that? A bunch of statements about the fact that he wants to play, that he's been working out, that he's eager for a chance to play, to kind of put to bed the idea that maybe he didn't want to play. So he put that out a long time ago. So, there's no doubt, at least from the outside, again, I don't know him personally and I'm not in his inner circle, but from what I'm reading from his camp was that he wants to play and has wanted to play. Just hasn't had a solid, I guess, opportunity where the opportunity matched his interest.
Sure.
I don't know if teams have reached out or maybe it just wasn't the right fit. I don't know, but obviously nothing's really matched up to this point. And so, it's not news. He said he wants to play. I hope it does.
Again, cynically speaking, from my perspective, covering the league for a long time, is they do have an inherent ability to step in it. Everything's going on okay. If they didn't want guys visibly protesting, if they wanted it to just kind of go away, it was virtually on its way to doing so.
Yeah. Well, it was on its way to doing so in the beginning until the president called football players SOBs. When he said in Alabama in 2017, there were a handful of players that were protesting. And yes, some people didn't like it, some people did, but it wasn't as big a deal as it was. But when he said that, that's when you saw the mass protests during the anthem. Those several weeks afterwards. He reignited it, if you remember.
Yes, he did now, yeah.
And so, I was in Baltimore, and we were the first team to play because he said it, and we were in London time, so we were ahead of everybody, and we didn't have time to really digest it. And guys were hurt. Like, guys were crying. Guys were crying, Tom. Like, our president said that about us. Like, dudes were like shook up. Didn't know what to do. Like, should I just go take a knee? I can't believe he said this about us. Whether you voted for him,
entire line of work.
Exactly. Whether you voted for him or not, there's still respect. Like, this is the leader of our country. He's our president. And for him to say that, that's what ignited that second round. And so when it came to Colin, they probably, just rolled it, reignited everything that was with him, because of the kneeling. And so, here we are now. So, but to your point, like it was, and now it is, kind of going away. But this will bring up some conversation.
It'll bring up some conversation.
Yeah.
We'll either throw a bucket of water on the whole thing and look, he can barely, throw it 15 yards.
Yeah.
Or
now it's like, well, dang, he really can throw it. So.
There's Benjamin Watson. He'd probably be valuable to have on a pod at some point, football aside. Again, sociology. It ain't politics. We don't have to have our shoulders go up around our ears when we hear this conversation. It's valuable. It's helpful. As destructive as the conversation sometimes tends to be, and as polarized as we seem to be, and people want to remind us we ain't as polarized as we think. I think by and large we all want to find that common ground and move forward. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the pod. Hope you enjoyed Phil. Hope you enjoyed Ruben. Go to the NBCSports.com predictor app, okay? Download that thing, or just go to NBCSports.com/predictor and jump on the Super 7, okay? You can make free money this weekend when the Sunday Night Football game rolls around. And that's a matchup between the Bears and the Rams. I remembered it. Bears-Rams. All right, guys, take care.